In a world where love and betrayal dance on the razor's edge of secrets and heartbreak, one woman's life unravels into a storm of scandal and survival. Mary Anderson, devoted wife and soon-to-be mother, never imagined that the man she adored, Joshua Anderson, could shatter her faith in marriage. But when a seductive mistress named Tiffany Monroe enters the picture and reveals she too is pregnant, Mary's life plunges into chaos. Abandoned without warning, Mary has nowhere to turn until an unexpected ally steps forward. In a whirlwind of political power, emotional upheaval, and shocking twists, the president himself intervenes. This is Mary's story. Mary Anderson woke to the sunlight filtering through gauzy curtains stretching across the comfortable bed she shared with her husband, Joshua. Outside, birds twittered their morning greetings, and the fresh scent of summer lilacs wafted in from the garden. As she opened her eyes, she felt a warm glow of contentment in her chest. Just 3 months ago, she had discovered she was pregnant. It was supposed to be the start of a beautiful new chapter. Though they had faced some marital bumps late nights at Joshua's office, an unexplained perfume scent on his jackets, she had chosen to trust him, believing in the vow they'd made 5 years ago. From the outside, their life looked like the epitome of success. A charming home in the suburbs, Joshua's thriving legal career, Mary's part-time work as a writer for a local magazine. Their neighbors, the Hemsworths, would often remark, "You two are such an incredible team." Mary would blush, never realizing how fragile that illusion was. Despite the secrecy swirling under the surface, she hoped for a bright future, complete with the pitter-patter of tiny feet. That morning, Mary was determined to give Joshua a wonderful start to the day. She busied herself preparing a hearty breakfast of scrambled eggs, toast, turkey bacon, and fresh orange juice. As she hummed a soft tune, Joshua strode into the kitchen. He looked slightly disheveled, his tie not properly aligned, his eyes flitting nervously. "Good morning," Mary greeted him, gently pressing a small kiss to his cheek. "I made your favorite. Something to get you off to a good start at the office." Joshua seemed distracted, glancing repeatedly at his phone. "Thanks, Mary," he mumbled, giving her a quick peck on the forehead. "I'm in a rush this morning. Big case, lots on my plate." She forced a smile, swallowing her disappointment at his lukewarm enthusiasm. "Oh, I understand. But try to eat at least a few bites. You skipped dinner last night. You hardly slept either." He responded with an irritable sigh. "I'll grab something on the way. Time's not on my side right now." Mary felt a tiny pang of worry. Joshua, always so polite and cheerful, never left the house without a proper breakfast. That was part of their routine. Yet she let him slip away, convincing herself his workload was simply intense. She was carrying their first child. After all, everything would be fine in time, right? Before he dashed off, he paused in the doorway. His eyes softened a fraction, and he turned back. "We'll talk later, I promise," he said, almost as if reading her thoughts of uncertainty. Then he was gone, leaving Mary alone in the silent kitchen. If only Mary could have known that cracks had already begun to form in their marriage, cracks that would soon yawn open into a chasm. Ignorance in that fleeting moment was her shield, but it wouldn't last. A single phone call, a single message, was all it would take to tear down her carefully constructed world. And that message would come sooner than she could ever imagine. By midday, Mary's phone buzzed with a text from her close friend, Anna Smith. They had known each other since college, though Anna had moved to New York City recently for work. Hannah was one of the few people privy to Mary's concerns about Joshua's late nights and unusual behavior. "Hey Mary, how are you feeling? Found anything else suspicious?" Mary read the message and exhaled deeply. Part of her felt guilty for confiding these fears about her husband to Anna, but she needed someone to talk to, especially now that she was pregnant. She typed back, "I'm okay. Tired. Trying not to worry. Joshua's so busy these days. I keep telling myself there's a good explanation." She waited for a response, hoping Anna's level-headed advice would bring some comfort. Within moments, Anna replied, "I just want you to be safe. Let me know if anything happens. Don't brush off the signs." Mary sighed, hugging a cushion to her chest. She wished away the nagging doubts, recalling how she found a red lipstick in Joshua's car a month ago. He'd explained it away. The client's, or a colleague's, he'd said, forced grin plastered on his face. Then there was the new credit card bill with an unexplained hotel charge out of town. Joshua insisted it was a last-minute business trip. The seeds of doubt were there, but Mary had buried them under trust or denial. The day stretched on, and by evening, Mary had grown restless. Joshua hadn't called or texted. She found herself pacing in the living room, hands resting on her belly. "I'm just being paranoid," she whispered to herself, rubbing small circles over her stomach, as if comforting the unborn baby inside. Eventually her phone chimed. Relief flooded her, until she saw the sender's name, unknown. Anxiety clenched her heart. Opening the text, she read, "You think you know him, but you don't. Ask your husband where he really was last night." Mary's breath hitched. Her mind raced with possibilities. Was this some cruel prank, a scam? But then her logical side noted it wasn't a random number. There were no spam links, no typical junk format. This felt personal, ominous, and real. Her hands shook as she tried to steady her thoughts. Should she confront Joshua immediately, or wait moments later? The front door clicked open, and Joshua stepped inside, looking pale and drained. She quickly put her phone down. "Hey," she managed her voice, quieter than normal. "Busy day." He nodded stiffly, eyes darting away from hers. "Yeah, extremely. I'm beat." He walked past her toward the stairs, not offering any more details. Mary wanted to question him about the text, about the suspicious signs swirling in her head. But she froze, caught between fear of what she might discover and the desire to preserve her illusions. She stood there for several seconds, feeling the weight of her unborn child, the uncertainty of her marriage, and the suffocating grip of dread. That night, Mary would lie awake, replaying the text message over and over in her mind. Tomorrow, she told herself, she would find the courage to confront this. Tomorrow, she would seek the truth. The next morning, Mary's resolve hardened. She had never been one to let herself be tormented by jealousy or paranoia, but this time felt different. She deserved answers, especially with a child on the way. Mustering her courage, she waited until Joshua had finished his shower and was halfway through tying his tie. "Joshua," she began, voice trembling, ever so slightly. "Can we talk about something?" He paused before the mirror, seemingly caught off guard by the seriousness in her tone. "Sure, but I have to be quick. I've got a breakfast meeting." Mary took a deep breath. "I've been getting strange messages. And you've been acting distant." She tried to choose her words carefully, not wanting to sound accusatory, but her heart was pounding against her ribcage. "Is there something you need to tell me?" Joshua's gaze shifted from the mirror to his phone, which rested on the nightstand. For a brief moment, Mary saw panic cross his face, but he recovered quickly. Strange messages. Probably a prank. "You know how people can be," she pressed on. "I found a lipstick in your car charges for hotel rooms you never explained, and you keep coming home late." Her voice quavered. "I need to know, is there someone else?" Silence enveloped the room, and Mary's chest tightened as Joshua's gaze fell. Finally, He turned to her eyes cold. "Why are you snooping around, Mary?" The abrupt shift in his tone and the lack of denial cut her to the core. Mary's eyes brimmed with tears as she realized the truth was more painful than any suspicion. "I'm snooping because something doesn't feel right. I'm your wife, Joshua. I have a right to know." He sighed, pulling on his jacket with forced calm. "Yes," he said flatly, "I've been seeing someone else." His words landed like a physical blow. "But don't make this dramatic. You and we've been off for a while." Mary took a faltering step backward. Her stomach felt twisted, and she instinctively cradled her belly. "How could you say that?" she whispered, tears rolling down her cheeks. "I'm pregnant with your child. How could we be off?" He rubbed a hand over his face, avoiding her gaze. "I didn't plan for this. It just happened. Tiffany understands me in ways you haven't for a long time. I'm sorry if that hurts you, but it's the truth." His lack of remorse felt like a knife, twisting deeper with each word. "Is it serious?" Mary's voice was barely audible, her throat raw from the sob that threatened to escape. When Joshua didn't respond, she felt the weight of his silence. That was all the answer she needed. Frozen in place, Mary could only watch as her husband, her once loving partner, snatched up his phone and keys. He looked at her one last time. "I can't talk about this right now. I'll be late." And with that, he walked out the door. Mary sank to the floor, tears streaming down her face, her shaking hands clutching her swollen abdomen. The ugly truth was out in the open, and it was about to set off a chain of events she never could have envisioned. The weight of betrayal wore on Mary day and night like a heavy stone strapped to her heart. She tried calling Joshua, but he avoided her questions, offering shallow reassurances like, "We'll handle it," or "Let's talk later." Each day that passed without resolution left her feeling more isolated. Unable to bear the uncertainty, Mary decided to face the situation head-on. She still had that unknown number stored in her phone. She suspected it might be connected to Tiffany. With shaking fingers, she composed a text. "I'm Mary Joshua Anderson's wife. I need to speak to you directly." She didn't have to wait long. The reply came swiftly. "Meet me at Sweet Bloom Cafe on Oak Street 2 p.m. tomorrow." Mary's heart hammered in her chest when she read those words. Anxiety gnawed at her, but she was determined to speak to the woman who had turned her world upside down. Despite her trembling resolve, Mary found herself at the cafe the next day, wearing a modest knee-length dress and a cardigan that concealed her baby bump, just enough to maintain some semblance of composure. She scanned the room, unsure which face belonged to Tiffany, until she spotted a tall, striking woman with auburn hair near the back. The woman's gaze locked on Mary the moment she stepped in, as if she'd been expecting her. This had to be Tiffany Monroe. Mary approached with measured steps, her mouth dry and her pulse roaring in her ears. "Tiffany?" she asked quietly. Tiffany nodded, gesturing for Mary to sit. She wore an elegant blouse and pencil skirt, seeming completely composed, even confident. Once Mary settled across from her, Tiffany spoke first. "You wanted to talk." Mary stared at the woman who seemed so self-assured, so unmoved. "I need to know what's going on with you and my husband," she said, voice trembling with barely contained anguish. Tiffany's lips curled into a half-smile. "I think you already know, Mary. Joshua and I have been seeing each other for 6 months. What else is there to say?" Mary swallowed the lump in her throat. Hearing the timeline made it all the more real. 6 months of deceit. "I need to understand why. What did I do wrong?" Tiffany tilted her head, her eyes flickering with a hint of pity. Or was it triumph? "It's not about you, Mary. Joshua said your marriage was hanging by a thread." He told me you had grown apart." As if anticipating Mary's next question, Tiffany dropped the bombshell that would shatter Mary's last shred of composure. "And just so you know, I'm pregnant too." The blow was almost too much to bear. Tears welled in Mary's eyes, her breathing shallow. "Yeah, you're pregnant by him." Tiffany nodded, her features a blend of pride and defiance. "Yes, 4 weeks along. He's chosen me, Mary. He wants a fresh start. I'm sorry if it hurts, but I think it's best if you accept it." Mary pressed a hand against her pounding heart. She felt dizzy, like the walls were caving in. Tiffany's unflinching gaze seemed to say, "I've won." At that moment, Mary realized her life would never be the same. The love she once believed unbreakable was crumbling before her eyes. Mary left the cafe in a haze of disbelief. Her feet barely felt the pavement beneath them as she walked to her car, heart thudding like a war drum in her chest. Tiffany's words echoed over and over in her mind. "He's chosen me. I'm pregnant too." She barely remembered the drive home. Stoplights blurred, pedestrians drifted past like ghosts. Her vision was clouded by tears, her hands clenched tightly on the steering wheel, as if letting go would cause her entire world to collapse for good. Once home, the silence in the house felt suffocating. Every object seemed to mock her framed wedding photos, the cozy throw blanket they picked out together, the tiny stack of pregnancy books on the coffee table. She sank into the couch, eyes raw and red, one hand protectively resting on her belly. She thought of calling Anna, but decided against it. This was something she needed to face herself. Joshua would be home soon, and tonight she would no longer pretend. Tonight she needed the truth, brutal, raw, and undeniable. Hours passed. The clock ticked louder than usual. When the front door finally clicked open just after 9, Mary rose slowly, almost mechanically. Joshua stepped in, dropping his keys in the bowl by the door. He looked tired, but not surprised to see her standing there. "We need to talk," Mary said, voice firmer than she expected. Joshua glanced up at her, his face unreadable. "Now." "Yes, now." He sighed and walked toward the kitchen, loosening his tie. "Can it wait till morning? I've had a long day." "No, Joshua." Mary followed him, her eyes narrowed. "I saw Tiffany today." Joshua stopped mid-step, back rigid. He didn't turn around. "So, she told you." Mary walked past him, forcing him to face her. "She told me everything. The affair. The baby. That you've chosen her." He finally looked her in the eye. There was no denial. No attempt to soften the blow. Just a resigned nod. "She's pregnant," Mary pressed her voice, cracking under the weight of the question. "Yes," he said, quietly. "About a month along." "And I'm 5 months pregnant with your child," she exploded, voice trembling. "Do you even care what this is doing to me?" To us, Joshua rubbed his temples, as if her words were an inconvenience. "Mary, we've been growing apart for a long time. I didn't plan this. It just happened. Tiffany and I understand each other," Mary interrupted bitterly. "That's what she said too, that you told her our marriage was a thread barely holding together." Joshua's face darkened. "I didn't think you'd take it this far. Digging into my personal life, confronting her. Digging into your personal life. I'm your wife." Mary screamed, her whole body shaking. "You've been living a double life while I've been home cooking meals and preparing for our child." He stepped back, avoiding her eyes. "I don't want to fight." "No, you just want to run." She pointed at her belly. "Tell me, Joshua, what happens to this baby? Do you plan to raise Tiffany's and pretend this one doesn't exist?" He hesitated, and that silence cut deeper than any insult. Mary covered her mouth, the sob escaping before she could stop it. I loved you. I trusted you. I'm sorry, he mumbled, not sounding sorry at all. But Tiffany and I are trying to build something. She needs peace right now. Her head snapped up. And I don't. He gestured vaguely. Look, this drama, it's not helping anyone. I need space to think clearly and honestly. You staying here crying every day, it's too much. Mary stared at him. What are you saying? He exhaled slowly, as if it physically pained him to say it. I think it's best if you stay with someone else for a while. Just until things calm down. The room went still. Mary's ears rang with disbelief. You want me to leave my own home while I'm pregnant? Because you cheated, and now it's inconvenient for you. Joshua looked away. I just can't deal with this emotional pressure right now. I need clarity. Tiffany's baby. We're planning ahead. She needs support. Mary took a trembling step toward him. You're really doing this? His jaw tightened. Don't make this harder than it has to be. I'll cover a hotel for a few days. I'm not some one-night fling you can toss aside with hush money, she cut in. You think you can just replace me? I didn't ask for this to happen. He snapped, his cool demeanor finally cracking. But it did. And I'm trying to deal with it the best I can. By kicking out your wife and unborn child, by protecting what little sanity I have left. Mary stared at the man she once knew, the man who had held her hand during ultrasounds, who once cried reading baby name books with her. That man was gone. In his place stood someone cold, calculating and selfish. Without another word, she turned and walked upstairs. Her legs felt like lead as she entered their bedroom, the one they once shared. She pulled out a suitcase from the closet, stuffing clothes and essentials into it with trembling hands. She paused at the dresser, running her fingers over the baby onesies tucked neatly in the drawer. She took one and held it to her chest, tears spilling down her face. Downstairs, Joshua made no move to stop her. She descended the stairs slowly, dragging her suitcase behind her. At the door, she turned to him one last time. I hope one day you realize what you threw away, Joshua. But by then it'll be too late. He said nothing, didn't even look up from his phone. Mary opened the door, stepped into the cool night air and closed it quietly behind her. That was the moment she stopped being someone's wife and started becoming her own salvation. Stunned by Joshua's cold demand, Mary found herself packing a bag in the dead of night. She moved as if in a trance, numbness weaving through every bone in her body. Memories of their wedding day, her white gown, his promise to love her in sickness and health, flitted through her mind like mocking phantoms. She hugged her belly, vowing silently never to abandon the child growing inside her. Unable to think of where else to go, Mary called Anna Smith. Through choked sobs, she explained everything Tiffany, her pregnancy, Joshua's brutality. Anna, horrified and furious, insisted that Mary come stay with her at least temporarily. The problem was Anna lived in New York, a few hours away. Mary hesitated. She had never driven for so long in her fragile state. But what other choice was there? Before she left, Mary paused in the foyer, looking around the home she had built with Joshua. She remembered painting the walls together, picking out curtains, hosting holiday dinners. Now her memories felt tainted beyond repair. She glanced at the framed wedding photo on the hallway table. They were smiling, starry-eyed with love. Hot tears burned her cheeks as she grabbed the frame, stuffed it into her bag, and walked out. No matter how shattered her life was, those memories were a piece of her story. When she emerged onto the street, night had settled, casting a mournful glow on the quiet neighborhood. She drove for hours the road, stretching before her like a dark corridor of uncertainty. At one point, she pulled into a gas station, hands shaking to catch her breath. She flicked through her phone, noticing all the missed calls from unknown numbers. Fear prickled down her spine. What else could possibly go wrong? By dawn, Mary arrived at Anna's modest apartment. Exhausted, she stood at the door until Anna flung it open, pulling her into a tight hug. "You should have called sooner," Anna admonished, worry deepening the lines around her eyes. "You shouldn't be driving like this. Come in, come in." Anna led her inside, letting Mary collapse on the couch. For a few moments, Mary just wept, tears soaking Anna's shoulder. She was safe, at least for now. Over cups of lukewarm tea, Mary finally mustered the strength to recount everything in detail. Anna listened intently, occasionally shaking her head in disbelief. That monster. "I wish I could do something more," Anna spat, patting Mary's arm in comfort. "You can stay here as long as you need." "Thank you," Mary murmured, voice ragged. I have to figure out what to do next. I have no money." Joshua handled most of the finances. "I don't even know if my bank card is still active." Anna's face hardened in determination. "First, let's check. Then we'll find you a lawyer, or we'll talk to someone who can help. This isn't over, Mary. You have rights, and you're not alone." Tears slid down Mary's face again, but this time they carried the faintest glimmer of hope. She had stumbled into darkness, but maybe she could find a path forward with her baby, if she had the right support. Despite Anna's unwavering support, Mary found the next few weeks to be a grueling test of her emotional endurance. The city sounds outside Anna's apartment were relentless sirens, and car horns replaced the tranquil bird song she had once known. She spent her days curled up in borrowed sweats, feeling lost in a haze of heartbreak and stress. Anna was determined to help Mary regain her footing. "You need legal advice," she kept insisting. "Joshua can't just kick you out without a cent. He owes you alimony, child support, everything." But every time Mary thought about calling a lawyer, she felt nauseated. She had no energy for a protracted legal battle. Her mind spun with questions. Could she handle the stress while pregnant? Would Joshua fight her every step of the way? She couldn't forget the ruthless look in his eyes the night he told her to leave. A few days later, Anna forced Mary out of her spiral of self-pity. "We're seeing a lawyer today," she declared. "I made an appointment with a family law attorney named Cynthia Levine. She's excellent. Trust me." Mary mustered a smile of gratitude. Despite her fear, she knew Anna was right. She had to protect herself and her child. Together they arrived at the attorney's office, an unassuming suite in a tall building in Midtown Manhattan. Cynthia, a sharply dressed woman with a keen gaze, greeted them. She listened patiently as Mary recounted her marriage's downfall. Occasionally, Cynthia asked pointed questions, scribbling notes. By the end, she leaned back, her expression both compassionate and resolute. "Mary," she began, "there are steps we can take. First, you have grounds for a divorce based on Joshua's adultery. Second, you have every right to demand financial support, especially given your pregnancy. I can help you file an emergency motion so you're not left stranded." Mary's eyes welled with tears of relief. "Thank you," she whispered, but a flicker of apprehension still nagged at her. What if Joshua refuses? What if this spirals out of control? As if reading her thoughts, Cynthia continued, "We'll serve him with papers. If he fights it, we'll push back. And trust me, the court tends to be sympathetic toward pregnant spouses who've been abandoned. That's not to say it'll be easy, but you're not powerless." A tiny ember of hope sparked in Mary's heart. She had felt powerless, but perhaps that was about to change. The meeting ended with a plan, a plan that might salvage her and her unborn child's future. However, life had one more twist planned. On their drive back, Mary's phone buzzed with a message from an old acquaintance in the suburbs. It read, "Mary, you might want to sit down for this. I heard Joshua and Tiffany are planning to announce their engagement. He filed a statement that you consented to separate. I'm so sorry." Mary's hand shot to her mouth, eyes wide. He's announcing an engagement while I'm still pregnant and homeless." Anna tightened her grip on the steering wheel. "He's not getting away with this," she murmured, anger simmering in her voice. But Mary felt the ground shift again, a fresh wave of despair threatening to engulf her. She couldn't imagine how things could get worse, yet fate would prove her wrong in unimaginable ways. In the aftermath of the devastating news, Mary tried to stay strong for her baby's sake. But each headline, each whisper from old friends, each social media post about Joshua and Tiffany's budding public romance chipped away at her resolve. She stopped checking Facebook or Instagram, unable to stomach the barrage of photos showing Tiffany's slender figure, an elegant hand resting on a barely visible baby bump, while Mary, her belly now rounding at 5 months pregnant, was hidden away in Anna's small apartment. Anna did her best to provide positivity. One evening she insisted they attend a local charity event for single mothers. "Just for fresh air," she said, tugging Mary out of the apartment. Held in a community centre, the event was modest, but filled with an uplifting spirit. There were stands offering legal advice, childcare resources, and even career counselling. Mary hovered near the corner, feeling somewhat out of place, but also strangely comforted by the presence of other women who understood struggles like hers. While Anna went to grab refreshments, Mary browsed a stall that showcased success stories of single mothers who had overcome hardships. Just as she reached out for a pamphlet, she heard a quiet voice behind her. "Excuse me, you dropped this." Mary turned to see a young volunteer holding her small notebook. "Oh, thank you," she said, a faint smile lifting her features. She noticed the volunteer's name tag, Elena Rodriguez, a friend from years ago back in high school. They had lost touch over time. A flood of memories rushed back, and Mary exclaimed softly, "Elena, it's me, Mary Mackenzie. Well now, Mary Anderson." Elena's eyes widened in recognition, and she pulled Mary into a warm hug. "Mary, I can't believe it's you. How are you?" But her tone softened when she saw Mary's solemn expression. "Are you okay?" Mary, feeling the need to confide, gave a brief explanation of her situation. Eleanor's empathy was instant. "Oh, Mary, I'm so sorry. Let me introduce you to someone." She gestured to a middle-aged woman at the next stall who specialized in job placement and financial aid for pregnant women in crisis. "She can help you find some resources to get you back on your feet." Grateful for the contact, Mary followed Eleanor. They spent the next hour discussing job opportunities Mary could manage remotely, given her advanced pregnancy. It wasn't a grand solution, just a chance to earn money and keep her mind engaged. But it was a start. Before leaving the event, Mary spotted a small cluster of cameras in the corridor. A local politician had dropped by to support the charity. Curiosity drew her closer, and Anna soon joined her, sipping on a lemonade. Together they watched as the politician greeted volunteers. Suddenly there was a stir near the entrance, people muttering, cameras flashing. Surrounded by Secret Service agents, a tall figure entered. Anna gripped Mary's arm, eyes wide. "Is that the president?" Indeed, President Alexander Harris, in town for a brief tour of community welfare projects, was making an unannounced stop. Mary's heart fluttered, with a strange mix of awe and nerves. She had only ever seen him on TV or in newspapers, a calm but resolute leader, known for championing family and welfare issues. Anna pulled Mary aside. "This is incredible. Let's not get too close. We don't want to cause a scene." Mary nodded, though her gaze lingered on the president as he spoke to volunteers, shaking hands and listening with genuine interest. Little did she know that this chance encounter was about to set off a life-altering series of events for her and for the unborn baby she carried. After the president's visit, Mary and Anna drove home, talking excitedly about the surreal moment. "I can't believe we were in the same room as Alexander Harris," Anna said, still giddy. "He seemed so normal in a good way." Mary laughed softly, feeling some of her old spark return for the first time in weeks. It was a reminder that there's a bigger world outside my problems. Maybe it's a sign I should keep fighting. The following morning, a surprise email awaited Mary. The subject line read, "Presidential Initiative on Family Support." Startled, she opened it to find a note from one of the charity organizers, "Dear Ms. Anderson. We were so moved by your story. The President's team has taken an interest in offering further assistance to a few select women facing hardship. Your courage and willingness to seek help stood out. Please reply at your earliest convenience if you are interested in meeting with an official from the President's Family Welfare Task Force." Mary nearly dropped her phone in astonishment. Anna, reading over her shoulder, squealed with excitement. "This is huge, Mary. You have to say yes." Though skeptical, Mary replied immediately, expressing her gratitude. Over the next few days, she exchanged messages with a staffer who set up a more formal meeting. They emphasized confidentiality and the importance of Mary's story, explaining that the President's administration wanted to gather real-life experiences to shape upcoming policies. "You could become a face for people who've been through domestic betrayal, spousal abandonment, and financial insecurity," the staffer explained on the phone. "We want genuine perspectives to guide legislation that supports vulnerable mothers." Tears welled in Mary's eyes, a mix of fear and hope swirling within her. She wasn't sure if she was strong enough to step into such a public role, but something in her heart urged her forward. Maybe this was a chance, not just to save herself, but to help others like her. On the day of the meeting, Mary felt a nervous quiver in her stomach. Anna accompanied her for moral support. The venue was a modest federal building in downtown Manhattan, far from the glitzy hustle. They were greeted by a friendly staffer named Rachel, who led them through corridors until they reached a private conference room. Inside, a handful of officials waited an aide to the president, a couple of social workers, and a legal advisor. They offered Mary coffee, seating her at the head of a small table. With gentle prodding, Mary recounted her story, her pregnancy, Joshua's affair, Tiffany's pregnancy, and being forced out of her own home. She struggled not to break down as she spoke about her desperation, the financial ruin, the emotional toll. When she finished, the aide leaned forward, face etched with genuine concern. "Mary, your situation highlights the very issues we're trying to address. Spousal neglect, lack of support for pregnant mothers in crisis. We want to help. Let's talk about immediate assistance options while we continue our policy research." It was surreal hearing these words from individuals so close to the highest office in the land. The meeting concluded with a promise to stay in touch. While Mary walked out, clutching a folder of information about potential housing aid and legal resources, she couldn't help feeling that destiny was nudging her toward something greater than her own survival. Buoyed by the meeting, Mary began taking small but significant steps to rebuild her life. She found part-time freelance writing work with the help of one of the charity's job placement contacts. She managed to open a separate bank account, away from Joshua's prying or potential manipulation. Meanwhile, Cynthia Levine, her lawyer, prepared preliminary documents for divorce and spousal support. But just as Mary found a tenuous equilibrium, new threats emerged. Anonymous calls started plaguing her phone at odd hours. Whenever she answered, there was only silence or ragged breathing. One night, the caller muttered, "Back off, Mary. Don't make this bigger than it needs to be." Then they hung up, leaving her shaken. Cynthia suspected these calls might be connected to Joshua or Tiffany, an attempt to scare Mary away from her legal entitlements. "Don't be intimidated," the lawyer urged. "We'll document everything." Then, in a twist that made Mary's blood run cold, she received a legal notice from Joshua's attorneys. It stated that Mary had deserted the marital home and was refusing marital counseling opportunities. Joshua's team was painting Mary as the one who abandoned the marriage, casting doubt on her moral fitness to be a mother. Rage and disbelief coursed through her as she read the document. "He's twisting everything," she cried, tears stinging her eyes. "He told me to leave." Anna placed a comforting hand on Mary's shoulder. "He's trying to break you, Mary. Don't let him." That very day, a text arrived from the president's staffer, Rachel. "We'd like you to meet the president in a private session to further discuss your experience and potential policy solutions. Are you available tomorrow afternoon at the Hilton Midtown?" Mary's heart pounded. She double-checked the message to confirm it wasn't a prank, but it came from the same government domain she'd been corresponding with. Meeting the president. Her mind spun in disbelief. With Cynthia's encouragement, Mary agreed. Anna again stood by her side, though she couldn't accompany Mary into the private session for security reasons. The next afternoon, Mary donned her best maternity dress, a simple navy ensemble that concealed her growing bump a bit, but still made her feel presentable. She arrived at the Hilton Midtown, where the staff guided her to a discreet conference room on one of the upper floors. Inside, President Alexander Harris sat at a round table flanked by two aides. He rose when Mary entered, his warm smile and firm handshake immediately putting her at ease. "Mary, it's an honor to meet you under less formal circumstances," President Harris said. "Thank you for taking the time." She felt her pulse thunder in her ears. "Thank you for giving me this opportunity, Mr. President." She sat, hands clasped nervously on her lap. For the next hour, Mary shared in depth the emotional and financial challenges she faced. The president listened with rapt attention, occasionally glancing at his aides as if to signal key points. His questions were thoughtful, focusing on the gaps in the legal system, the vulnerabilities of pregnant women facing spousal abandonment, and the ways charitable organizations had stepped in where government support was lacking. As the meeting concluded, President Harris leaned forward, sincerity shining in his eyes. "Your courage is remarkable, Mary. We have initiatives in progress, but people need to see and hear real-life stories to fully grasp the urgency. Would you be willing to speak at a small press conference about this issue? Nothing invasive, just to highlight why legislation like ours is so critical." Mary hesitated. Public speaking had never been her forte. She pictured cameras, flashing reporters, thrusting microphones. Yet she remembered all the anonymous women she had seen at the community center, their resilience and suffering. Maybe her story could help them too. Summoning courage, she nodded. "I will do it." President Harris smiled, relief evident in his expression. "I believe your testimony can help spark real change, and please know if you need any resources or protections, my team is here to help." Walking out of that room, Mary felt a surge of hope cut through her despair. She still had a battle to fight against Joshua, but now she had an unexpected ally in the highest office of the land. The next few days passed in a whirlwind. Mary found herself in the uncharted territory of media advisories, talking points and briefings from the president's communication team. They insisted the press conference would be small, just a handful of reporters who specialized in human interest stories and family welfare issues. But to Mary, it felt monumental. This was her life, her heartbreak thrust into the public eye. Anna helped Mary prepare, coaching her on posture tone and how to share her story without dissolving into tears. "It's okay to be emotional," Anna reassured her. "Just remember why you're doing this. You're shining a light on a systemic problem. You're fighting for your own rights and those of countless women in your position." The day of the press conference, Mary's nerves were a live wire. The event was held in a stately room inside the same federal building in Manhattan. A small podium stood at the front, flanked by American flags. About 24 reporters milled around, checking their cameras and notepads. At precisely 3 o'clock, Rachel escorted Mary to the stage area. President Harris was already there, greeting the press with polite nods. When Mary was introduced, she stepped behind the podium, heart hammering in her chest. She forced her gaze to scan the room, recalling Anna's advice. Look for a friendly face. She spotted Anna in the back corner, smiling encouragingly. Then Mary began. She spoke of her marriage to Joshua, the discovery of his affair, the shock of learning his mistress was also pregnant. She touched on the heartbreak of being kicked out with no financial support and a baby on the way. Her voice trembled occasionally, and tears sprang forth when she recounted the loneliness she felt after leaving the only home she'd known. But her words rang with authenticity, painting a vivid picture of the reality so many women endured in silence. President Harris stood off to the side, nodding gravely as she spoke. When Mary finished, the room was hushed, a hush heavy with empathy and respect. Some reporters dabbed at their eyes. Even the cameras, so often an intimidating presence, felt gentler in that moment. Taking the microphone, President Harris commended Mary's bravery and emphasized the need for enhanced legal protections for pregnant spouses, streamlined child support enforcement, and broader social services. Stories like Mary's, he declared, remind us that our policies must be grounded in compassion and justice. We can and must do better. As the conference ended, reporters clamored for interviews, but the president's team guided Mary away, ensuring she wasn't overwhelmed. Mary felt an odd mixture of relief and apprehension. She had bared her soul to strangers, but she also sensed a weight lifting. She wasn't hiding anymore. She was taking control of her narrative. Yet the ripple effects of her public statement were about to reach far beyond her imagination. She didn't know that Joshua, Tiffany, and even more ominous forces were listening, and they would not be pleased. Her fight for justice was only just beginning, but now she had a powerful ally by her side and the entire country watching. A week after the press conference, Mary's life transformed almost overnight. Calls poured in from advocacy groups offering support. Cynthia, her lawyer, gained renewed momentum in the divorce proceedings. The public exposure meant Joshua's every legal maneuver would now be under scrutiny. Quietly but surely, the tide was turning in Mary's favor. But with newfound hope also came a surge of anger from Joshua's side. Late one evening, as Mary was returning from an OB/GYN appointment, she felt someone tailing her. Panic flared in her chest. She gripped the steering wheel, trying to shake the car following too close behind. Fear soared when the driver revved the engine and nearly sideswiped her. Eventually, she managed to turn into a busy street, losing the tail. Shaken, she told Anna she suspected it was an intimidation tactic. Then came a bombshell. Tiffany filed a complaint against Mary for harassment, claiming Mary's public statements were slanderous. Social media erupted with opinions. Some people labeled Mary a victim. Others called her attention-seeking. The online harassment was brutal. Strangers hurled insults, blaming her for airing dirty laundry and playing victim. Mary had never felt so exposed, but she tried to remind herself that she was fighting for her rights, for her baby, and for others like her. Finally, the day of the initial divorce hearing arrived. Cynthia stood at Mary's side, armed with evidence of Joshua's infidelity, Mary's forced departure, and the threats she'd faced. Across the courtroom, Joshua and Tiffany sat stiffly their attorney, spinning a narrative of Mary's overreaction and voluntary separation. Tension crackled, but the judge's gaze was stern when he turned to Joshua. "Mr. Anderson, not only is there substantial evidence of extramarital conduct and spousal neglect, but you've also neglected financial responsibilities toward your pregnant wife. You've left her with minimal resources. That is unacceptable." He didn't hide his disapproval, and Mary felt a small surge of vindication. Cynthia pressed further, requesting a restraining order against Joshua to prevent any further intimidation, plus immediate spousal support. The judge granted a temporary support order, instructing Joshua to provide housing or pay for Mary's living arrangements pending the full divorce settlement. The relief that washed over Mary was almost overwhelming. She glanced at Joshua, who seethed with anger, his eyes flickering with blame. Outside the courtroom, cameras flashed. Reporters peppered Mary with questions referencing her press conference with President Harris. Mary felt dizzy, but she forced a polite smile. Just as she was about to respond, a stern yet familiar voice rang out. "Please give Ms. Anderson some space." Mary turned. It was President Harris. He stood flanked by 2 Secret Service agents, having arrived quietly to show support for her hearing. Shock rippled through the media cameras, now whirling in his direction. He offered Mary a reassuring nod. "Mr. President." She breathed tears welling up. She couldn't believe he had taken time to come personally. He extended a protective arm, guiding her gently past the reporters. "Let's get you somewhere safe," he said, quietly. Within moments, they were ushered into a government-issued SUV, the Secret Service clearing the path. Anna, wide-eyed and trembling, followed. As the car pulled away, Mary gazed at the president, words failing her. He offered a gentle smile. "I told you, Mary, we're committed to ensuring you and others like you aren't abandoned to fight alone." Overwhelmed with gratitude, Mary silently prayed for her unborn child, for the life she was about to rebuild. She didn't know where this journey would take her. Divorce battles still loomed. Motherhood beckoned, and heartbreak lingered. Yet she felt a renewed sense of courage. Her story had become more than a tale of betrayal and survival. It was now a testament to the power of hope, the strength of solidarity, and the possibility of rescue, even from the most unexpected places. 3 months later, Mary gave birth to a healthy baby girl she named Hope, an embodiment of everything she had fought for. Joshua and Tiffany's relationship under public scrutiny buckled amid the stress of legal challenges and media backlash. Tiffany's pregnancy became a spectacle, and the once gleaming illusion of their affair tarnished. In time, Mary finalized the divorce, receiving fair alimony and child support through Cynthia's relentless advocacy. President Harris invited Mary to Washington, D.C. for a ceremonial signing of a new Family Protection Act legislation, aiming to offer stronger rights for abandoned spouses, streamlined child support enforcement, and financial security for pregnant mothers in dire circumstances. Mary stood at the president's side, tears in her eyes, as cameras captured the moment. In her arms, baby Hope squirmed, but didn't cry, as though she too understood they were part of a new beginning. Life wasn't a fairy tale. Mary still grappled with the scars of betrayal. Sleepless nights, single motherhood therapy sessions, these were realities she faced daily. But she persevered, bolstered by the unwavering support of people like Anna, Elena, Cynthia, and the countless others who had stepped up. This was Mary's triumph from a betrayed wife, kicked out by a cheating husband, to a woman forging her own path, rescued by her own inner strength, and a president who recognized the value of a single voice in a sea of injustice. She was not defined by Joshua's disloyalty any longer, but by her bravery in the face of adversity, standing not just for herself, but for every woman forced into the shadows by an unfaithful spouse. In this real-life drama, Mary emerged not just a survivor, but a champion. Mary's journey from heartbreak to redemption demonstrates the incredible resilience of the human spirit. We've witnessed her navigate the storm of betrayal, stand up to legal intimidation, and ultimately find unexpected support from the highest office in the land. She discovered within herself a fierce determination to protect her child's future, prove her worth, and speak for countless others trapped in silent despair. It's a testament to how one small act of courage reaching out for help can blossom into a movement that reshapes laws and saves lives. If Mary's story moved you, if her triumph over adversity inspired you, consider helping others find hope. Like this video to show your support, share it to raise awareness, and subscribe for more uplifting real-life drama stories. Together, we can ensure that no one facing betrayal and abandonment has to walk that road alone. Your support truly makes a difference.